boy Roy Jones Jr. just hollering at you, all right?
Like that? You're right.
Last thing I said before transition to the other fight.
Jim Lampley, Raymundo Beltran, and Roy Jones Jr. after the fight.
Take me right in the chest. Put it right in the chest, but you catch everything.
All right, we had a big weekend of boxing. Three different networks. Fox Sports 1 was late at night, Benavidez versus Medina, and HBO was Crawford and Diaz, and we also had Gary Russell Jr. versus Oscar Escandon. This video might be long. Forgive me. I want to say, my man Faraz over there at Strictly Boxing, forgive me. I know you don't like when I do the long videos, man, but it's a lot to talk about. I don't want to break it up into 3 videos. The card I actually went to was the Crawford versus Diaz Jr. So I guess I can start there. The fight with, well, first of all, my man Shakur Stevenson, his second fight, he fought in front of a nice home crowd. He's from Newark, New Jersey, which is right across the bridge from New York. So he had a lot of his fans in Madison Square Garden. He got a first round knockout. Controversial. I didn't really consider it. He knocked the guy down, but kind of dragged him down. He had the guy buzzed or whatever, and then kind of dragged him. And as the guy was trying to get up, he kind of stumbled backwards, not because of his equilibrium being messed up, but just the referee was kind of, Arthur McCanty Jr. was over top of him, and the kid was all right, but McCanty read it as if his equilibrium was off, when it was the way, it's kind of the way he got up. He got up wrong, and the referee was breathing over top of him, so that might have something to do with it. But bad stoppage, in my opinion. He wasn't going to beat Shakur, but Arthur McCanty, I'm not even going to. Shakur Stevenson won, so got himself a early knockout, and it should be. I'm sure somebody will post it on YouTube. But one thing I'll say about Shakur, I don't know if his plan was to go for a knockout. He's not a power puncher. He's not going to have a lot of knockouts in his career as far as percentage, high percentage. But the way he was throwing his punches in this fight looked like he was really trying to sit down and put something behind it. So he got what he set out to do. I tried to catch up to Shakur, couldn't find him after that. I don't know if he just left and went home and partied with his folks or what, but couldn't catch up to him. There's some pictures that are going to show throughout the video, most of which come from the card at MGM National Harbor that was on Showtime. Shout out to Chris Williams, C Boxing Info. Shout out to Nikila Taylor, C Boxing Info, and Want TV for just taking hundreds of pictures. If you go to thefightjournal.com, you look at, I got weigh-in photos, and from a couple of days ago, and then also photos from the press conference, and then I'm probably going to do another thing with some of these photos you see here and some other ones from the fight. And put them all together, and just to show all the pictures that they did from the fights. The fight after, and you know what, I'll put them like in a photo gallery so that you can just kind of, like every 2 seconds or so, it'll go to the next picture, and do it like that, and so like a slideshow. That's the word I'm looking for. Photo gallery, slideshow. The fight after that, very emotional night for Raymundo Beltran, or Ray Beltran as he's using these days. And there were a lot of supporters for Beltran and a lot of supporters for Jonathan Michello. And Beltran got a brutal, check it out if you haven't seen it, nice kind of, not quite a leaping left hook, but he reached for it. Brutal left hook stoppage at 1 minute 25 seconds of round 2. Max Kellerman was funny in the post-fight press conference. I mean, post-fight interview with Beltran. He talked about how the referee, David Fields, made a mistake in the first round, and then he talked about how David Fields made a mistake in the second round. And I'm like, but the way he said it, he was like, I'm like, okay, man, you must have something against David Fields. But there was a clash of heads in the first round, and Beltran went down, and Fields ruled it a knockdown, which was incorrect, and Kellerman let the world know he incorrectly did it, called it a knockdown. And then there was a knockdown, I guess, that was late, and Fields was incorrectly made that call too. So Kellerman's funny, but in the second round, it was just I mean, a left hook just ended everything. Now, I don't know if they took Jonathan out on a stretcher, and I mean he was out cold. So that part was emotional. But what I meant by an emotional thing was the post fight interview. Beltran pretty much let everyone know that he's been a citizen of the boxing ring for years, but he wants to be a United States citizen. And he said that the lawyers for immigration told him that he needed a victory, because if he didn't win, there's a good chance he would be deported back to Mexico. This is some real stuff, man. So he's getting real emotional. His voice is cracking. I mean, tears coming down his eyes. And he's just saying that if he didn't win that fight, if he did not win that fight, he might not be a U.S. citizen, and him, his family would have to go back to Mexico. And so with the win and with the title shot, it kind of strengthens his chance to get a green card and be a United States citizen. So it was emotional. If you get a chance, check it out. The main event, Felix Diaz came to party early on, but the problem with Diaz was the same problem with Gamboa, the same problem with Hank Lundy. These guys are short, they're vertically challenged, and their length as far as their reach, it just doesn't work with a fighter like Terrence Crawford, who understands distance and well, he understands distance when he wants to. Let's put it that way. So in front of 8,026 attendees, the first round, looking at my notes now that I took, I was about 6 rows back, ringside. First round saw some early misses by Diaz. The length, just too much length. And second round, Bud Crawford start working the jab. And but I thought Diaz actually stole the round with some good work toward the end of the second round. I gave Diaz the second round and I believe the 7th, if I'm not mistaken. Round 3, what did I put here? Length too much to overcome. The jab is just winning the rounds, dominating the fight. 4th, Crawford mixing punches up. I don't know what the heck I wrote there. Looked like I put weaving. Oh, no. Wearing Diaz down. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Okay. 5th round, a 2-piece by Bud Crawford. Big uppercut. Too elusive at the end of the round. Crawford's banking the rounds. 6th round, he started kind of playing games. Another big uppercut. Jab. His jab has become a power punch. I mean, he's really picking Diaz off. His eyes, his right eye swelling at this point. 7th round, jab is winning the fight. The uppercut's winning the fight. Good round for Diaz in the 7th. And then from there, it was kind of just a wash. I mean, he gave a good effort. He's a skilled fighter, but those height and reach advantages were too much for him to overcome for a guy like Crawford. Now, when he fought Lamont Peterson, Diaz won that fight. And to many observers, I mean, bottom line was they gave the fight to Lamont Peterson. I gave my reasons why in a prior video. Location. So, but Crawford, he was dominant. And so at the end of round 10, the corner for Diaz waved the fight off. And that was it. So Terrence Crawford, I don't know what Max Kellerman did to him. One of the problems with Terrence Crawford is how he deals with the media, and he's kind of anti-media in a way. So he kind of Max Kellerman asked him a question, and Terrence answered it the way he wanted to answer it, and then Kellerman kind of followed up with the same question, and dude answered it again the way he wanted to answer. Like, did you not understand my answer? Pretty much, like, so let's move on. So, he pretty much said, why did you fight Southpaw? And he was like, I fought Southpaw because that's what I wanted to do. So he asked him, I guess, in another way, and he was like, I did it because that's what I wanted to do. And he pretty much said it was a fight. You can't be nice in there. You know, my dad taught me as a little kid to be mean in there. So you can't go in there and play around. So then they asked him who's next, and he said Pacquiao. That's the only fight out there I'm looking for. And then he was like, if I can't get that, then Ndango was there. He was like, he came to my fight, so where's he? You know, if he's here, I'm ready to fight him also. And then he was like, but who knows? It's not up to me. I mean, I'll fight Keith Thurman, whoever. Like, so those are three names. If he's going to stay at 140, then, right, the Pacquiao, the Ndango, and then if he moves to 47, the Keith Thurman thing. So we'll see. But it's just good to hear him finally say, all right, this is what it is. So now we'll see. We'll see if Pacquiao can hold serve against Jeff Horn. Everybody's talking about Mikey Garcia and Crawford. And while they did fight in the amateurs, Crawford is, I don't want to use the term weight bully, because I could have used the term back when he fought Gamboa and was like 3 weight classes heavier than him on fight night. But Mikey Garcia is too small. I love Mikey Garcia's skills. He's one of my favorite fighters. I just think he's too small. A guy who did struggle, and I think he struggled because of how he prepared. But a guy I'd like to see Crawford fight if he's going to stay at 140 is a guy named Barthélemy, who won on the undercard on the Showtime portion. It was a struggle for him. Sometimes you're not up for a guy, and you figure, okay, I'm just going to get by on what I can do. But I think if Rancis got a fight with a Crawford, you see a different guy. And that's something I would really like to see if he's going to stay at 140 pounds. When questioned, Bob Arum pretty much said, well, we are far away from a fight with a Keith Thurman. As far as Diaz, Crawford said he knew he was frustrated. He was eating a lot of jabs. His eyes were swollen. He was getting desperate. And he was trying to set me up by going to the ropes so he can lunge in. But I wasn't going for that. And he's right, because Crawford would get close to the ropes, and sometimes he would hit Diaz, and Diaz would kind of faint like he's hurt, and he would go toward the ropes. But it was all a game that played. So, but Joel Diaz, who is known for pretty good trainer, was Timothy Bradley's trainer at one point. He's got some guys. He waved the towel, and that was it. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Crawford wants to get back in there in the fall or early part of the winter. So we'll see what the Bob father has for him. It was a good night. Tracy Morgan was in the house. Evander Holyfield was in the house. A couple of actors from some television shows. I can't even remember who else was there. But it was cool. It was a cool night of boxing. It wasn't the theater at Madison Square Garden, which gets about maybe 4,000. And it wasn't the big garden. And so it was the lower level and then the next level up, and they kind of cut it to that. But you got 8,000 in there, so it wasn't bad. A lot of them were for Shakur Stevenson. A lot of Beltran folks were in the house for sure. And some Peruvians were in there. It was decent. Got some t-shirts too. If you go to thefightjournal.com and you select, I don't even know how I put it up there, contact us or about us or something like that. You select that, you see my email. Email me. All right, I got 2 t-shirts that are extra large, 1X, XL, and I got 2X's. So you want them? First ones to get to me, first 4, they're yours. So moving on to the card in Oxon Hill, Maryland, MGM National Harbor. My favorite fighter on all the cards, Rances Barthélemy. That's the one fight I didn't see. So I heard he got hurt, he got buzzed, and almost got out of there, but he survived, showed the heart of a champion, and won a decision. Setting the day off for that was Gervonta Davis, and took him a couple rounds to warm up, and then third round he kind of took Liam Walshy, and got him out of there. First 2 rounds were just, I guess, guys trying to stake their claim, do what they needed to do, mark their territory, and then I don't know when Walsh got hurt. I don't know. I mean, put your hands up, son. Grab, do something. Showed a little bravado and got caught. And he was hurt. The stoppage was premature, I guess. But, okay, if we give you some additional time, then what? And he wasn't displaying many survival skills. So you always, I hate using the term he was going to get knocked out anyway, because when I always think about that Diego Corrales, Jose Luis Castillo thing where, well, if the ref didn't stop it, Castillo was going to knock him out anyway, and then you saw what happened. Probably the greatest fight I've ever seen. So, the first one, of course. So, but, I mean, odds are, let's put it that way, that Liam wasn't, maybe he recovers, lasts another round, but I don't think he was strong enough to keep the kid off of him. Before we go calling Gervonta Mike Tyson, and listen, I know Gervonta Davis. I've seen him on the streets. I've seen him on some streets I wish he wouldn't be on. If you go back in my timeline on YouTube, you'll see, I think I interviewed Tank when he was like 6-0, I think. When half of Baltimore didn't even know him. Three-quarters of the world didn't even know him. Nobody in D.C., nobody in New York. All my hangouts. Like, who? As a matter of fact, I knew Gervonta, and if you go back, you'll see, scroll, just go to the beginning of my timeline, and when I really didn't know what I was doing, and probably still don't, but you'll see an interview with Gervonta Davis, and he, man, I want to say he was 6-0, maybe 8-0. I knew Gervonta when he was Rambo. See, before he was Tank, he was Rambo Davis. And I think I asked him that in an interview. If I didn't, I asked him that after. But I'm almost sure I asked him that in the interview. It's been so long ago, I got to check. But he was Rambo. And I asked him, well, why did you change your name to Tank? And he said, well, he has a new team now. And this is way before the money team. He had the team where he was Rambo, then he had the team when he was Tank, and this was well before Floyd. As a matter of fact, I had a hand in him meeting Floyd. You know what? I'll tell this story. As a matter of fact, the girl who I'm gonna tell it anyway. The girl who I mentioned earlier, Nikila Taylor. We were at a press conference. It was Floyd versus. It was either Canelo or Maidana or Guerrero. I think it was Maidana. And a little light-skinned kid comes up and was like, I want to get on stage. I want to meet Floyd. I want to meet Floyd. Help me meet Floyd. So he's trying to get on stage. He couldn't get on. So Nikila pulls me over and says, come on, lift us up. Help me lift him up. And we lifted him up on stage, and he got his glove signed. And Floyd, I'm a boxer, and I want to. And Floyd, you know, he's looking at him like, yeah, man, you know how many kids tell me I can box? I swear to this story, this is a true story. Like, he's looking at him like, man, you know how many kids tell me he can box? So later on, as Adrian Broner starts coming to the Petersons, Headbangers Gym, Lamont Peterson, Anthony Peterson, and Barry Hunter, Tank's in there, and and Broner's looking at this kid like, yo, who the heck is who is this guy? And blase blah, to make a long story a little less long, he said, well, listen, Floyd, I don't have my About Billions promotions. I guess this part I'm speculating on it. He wasn't ready to have his About Billions thing, so he passed them off to Floyd. And I don't even know if Floyd remembers if that was the same kid or not. But that's how it went down. Anyway, before we start calling Tank Mike Tyson and all this other stuff, I just want you to ask yourself two questions. So, a lot of people who write, if they know a fighter or they're close to a fighter, they kind of write their stories or do their videos in like a hometown kind of way, a home team kind of way. Well, I'm not from Baltimore, but I know Tank, but I'm not a homer. Even if he was from my hometown, I'm going to write it or call it the way I see it. and then let people who know the kid, who hang around him, tell me to go to hell or whatever. I don't care. Before we start calling Gervonta Mike Tyson, which is what we're hearing, understand this. Before Gervonta Davis fought Jose Pedraza, ladies and gentlemen, raise your hands. Raise them up high so I can see them. How many of you heard of Jose Pedraza? I mean, keep it real. Okay fighter, but keep it real. And prior to the announcement that he was going to fight Liam Walsh, how many people, put those hands up, heard of Liam Walsh? I'm going to tell you how many people heard of Liam Walsh before the fight was announced. If you go back and look at some of the prediction videos for Gervonta Davis versus Liam Walsh, you're going to hear a lot of people slip up and say Liam Smith, like Beefy Smith, the guy that Canelo wrote. And there's another Liam over there too. Liam, I forgot his name. But the point I'm trying to make is, you people can't even get the guy's name right. You're calling him Liam Smith. So, yes, Gervonta's young, and Floyd keeps saying, well, we're not going to do stuff like that. He's young, he's still growing. But in my day, if you have a belt, if you have a strap, you take a couple of mandatories or what have you, and then it's time to unify. Unification fights. So you can't use age or inexperience as an excuse if you're already a world champion. I'm not talking about NABF or IBA or WBF. Shout out to my man James Gibbs Jr. This is the real deal, man. This is the IBF. This is the world. So he needs to keep learning his craft. He needs to keep doing well. And either Floyd Mayweather Jr., and you are Floyd Jr., man. I mean, I understand technically you're not because you don't have the same middle name, but come on, man, you've been junior. It's like, don't get 40 years old and then change the game on me, man. But Floyd, the reason they say junior is to separate him from senior. But most people, 95% of the time, when they don't put the junior or senior on it, they're talking about Floyd. Either you're going to let Calvin Ford and them be your cornerman, or you got to let Floyd be your cornerman. Because it just looks... It's like, if you go back and watch Floyd... if you watch Gervonta Davis's fight with what's the guy name? It's a couple of fights ago. He fought on a PBC card, and he every round, and it got worse. Every round, as the fight went on, he's not listening to Calvin at all, or Coach Kenny at all. He's listening. He's looking in the audience, and Calvin is giving him instructions, and he's looking over at Floyd. You got to watch this fight. I'm trying to remember. Gosh, I can't remember which fight it was. But, anyway. It's a couple of fights ago, and it was a PBC card, and it was the one that went deep into the fight before he got the knockout. It's that one. I think he went longer than he had ever went before, and he got the knockout. It got so bad after a while that Calvin, instead of hollering instructions, he's looking at Floyd while Tank's looking at Floyd in the stands, and then he's saying, "You're right. Floyd's right. That's what you got to do." I'm sitting there like, man, come on, man. You can't make this stuff up. So, we'll see, but he needs to keep on punching. And the message to Floyd Mayweather, and I'm gonna call you Junior, bring the kid to the DMV, to that new MGM, National Harbor, and let him fight there. It's 3,000 seats. He'll sell it out. Put a couple of Maryland guys on the card, some DC guys, some Virginia, DMV, and let him fight. Let him make a. Because remember, you had Joe Gans back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, whatever. You had Joe Gans. You had Vince Petway. And Rockman didn't do it. So bring a world title fight to Baltimore if you can. Even though the Baltimore Arena or Royal Farms Arena or whatever it's called now is antiquated. Bottom line is it holds probably 10,000, maybe more. If you think 3,000 is not enough at the National Harbor, bring it to the actual city where there hasn't been a title defense since, goodness, who knows when. So he did well. He needs to keep growing, and I like to see him continue to box. Some guys might have a chin that's good enough to take some of those punches. So box and set up your power shots, because there are a lot of guys out there better than Liam Walsh, and that weight class is loaded right now, loaded. I didn't see the Rances Barthélemy fight. However, I did see Andre Dirrell getting picked apart, getting walked down, and Andre Dirrell's a guy who has some talent. Okay, he's always had talent, but you have to wonder if he is ever. He's one of those guys that may never be a world champion, and I don't count this interim thing. That's an interim belt. That's like being the #1 contender. That's just a token, a trinket. I'm talking about you becoming a real world champion. And it's funny because he lost to James DeGale, and now he's in line to fight James DeGale. And James DeGale he's catching James DeGale at the right time with the injuries that he has coming off the brutal fight that he had with Badu Jack. If he's next in line and that's going to be DeGale's next fight, it'll be interesting because I have to be honest, I really don't think Andre Dirrell has a lot left. I saw him fight in Atlantic City. What was that? Last year on a PBC card. Was it last year? And first of all, I mean, the house was empty. And it was so empty that some people said they walked in. A couple of people I talked to said that they just gave up. I guess people gave up on the ticket thing and just let some people in to make it look good on TV. And while his brother looked good, who I think may be less talented, his brother's had a better go of things. And his brother has been a world champion, Anthony Dirrell. So the dog. So look, Darrell has some soul searching to do, and despite the incident afterwards, the aftermath with his uncle, I have to be honest, I wasn't in there, but here's what I think I saw. First of all, because I watched it on the computer, so sometimes the timing is off. But I saw a 3-punch combination being thrown. I believe it was 3 punches. And I saw 2 of the punches come, I guess, before the bell. And the third one landed after the bell. But it wasn't... First of all, it's tough to stop a 3-punch combination. I mean, when you're getting off, you're getting off. And... especially when you're winding up and you're throwing a shot. And if it's not intentional, which I don't think it was, look, man, I understand why the guy was disqualified, because the referee deemed it well late. I think the Maryland Commission guy kind of covered the referee, so to speak, by answering the question the way he did. And my man is putting an article together for the website to explain that. Excuse my voice. But he stopped it because Darrell said he couldn't continue. Now, I'm not in Darrell's shoes, but from my vantage point, he looked like he was down, he was hurt. He kind of got on his knees or what have you. But then, if you notice, Andre Dirrell took a look to the left, and someone from his corner or someone he knew kind of tipped him off to stay down. Just watch it. And when he looks over there to the left, then he kind of does these motions as if things were getting worse. And I gotta be honest, and I've seen a couple of videos where people are saying he was acting and he should win an Oscar and all that other stuff. And you know what? I can't argue with those people. I wasn't in the ring. You know, you're always giving fighters the bit. But then he got up and he kind of... It was more of an indictment on him than his opponent. He was saying that, well, I got hit, then I heard the bell, and then everything went... And I'm like... in other words, it was almost like he was saying the shot happened on time, either at the bell or right before the bell, or so close after the bell that it should have counted. So it's like it was like an indictment on himself, and not. And then it's like I don't want to win a title like this, and I'm like, well, get up and fight then. Take your 5 minutes and give it a go. So I don't know. In the main event, so the thing with the uncle, I mean, because it's not a rape or a murder, I think if he found a way to get out of Maryland, that as long as he stays out of trouble, wherever he goes, I don't think they're gonna issue a warrant. I don't think anybody's gonna come get him unless he comes back to the state of Maryland. But if he stays out of Maryland, then I don't think they're going to come to Detroit or wherever he lives for that. It'll just be a thing where if we pull you over and you in the state of Maryland, buddy, well, so in other words, what I'm saying is, if they caught a flight from Detroit or Flint, Michigan, or what have you, to Maryland, they may want to eat that ticket, put him in a rental car with some other driver, and then take a drive outside of Maryland. Just drive back to Flint, Michigan, or simply go to another state like that's close, like a Philly or something, and then catch your flight there or what have you, or turn yourself in. I mean, take your chances. Main event, Mr. Gary Russell Jr., Oscar Escandon. I didn't watch the entire fight. I saw most of it. I saw Escandon get some shots in there, but Russell's too quick, too strong, and Gary got to him. He did what he needed to do. He entertained the home fans. So it was a battle from what I was seeing, the few rounds that I saw. And Gary is really, it's eating at him. He wants to fight Lomachenko. And while I'm not sure if Gary is a different fighter from when they first fought, because Gary has been inactive, I know for a fact that Lomachenko is a different fighter. And they're working on Lomachenko versus Orlando Salido for either LA or Chicago, from what I hear. I wish it would come to New York. I really would rather it be in New York. And Bob don't mess with Atlantic City too much, too tough, so. But it looks like LA or Chicago for that. And then maybe Russell gets his wish, maybe he doesn't. I think Lomachenko has different plans. But if they were to fight again, I'd advise Russell to get more active, to fight a couple of more before the Lomachenko fight. Because if he doesn't, in my opinion, I think the beating, I think the fight would be worse than the first fight. I really do. I think that Lomachenko has set himself at a further distance than Russell. And I'm not saying that because Gary doesn't have skills. I'm saying that because he needs to be active, and he needs to get in there with someone who is a higher risk, so we can see what Mr. Gary Russell is made of. So, that's it. I gotta waiting for my colleague to do his article so I can edit it, and then get into overdrive and get ready for this Brook versus Spence Jr. thing. One thing that's interesting is the weigh-in. I mean, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm more, or let's say equally as interested in the weigh-in as I am the fight. The weigh-in is going to tell me some things, and it's going to sway me either way. So, we'll see. But let me see if I can catch up to see what this Rancis Barthélemy fight looks like. I may watch the full Russell Jr. fight just to see. As I stated, if you go to thefightjournal.com on our website, you'll see photos from the Gary Russell, Oscar Escandon weigh-in. It's like a slideshow. And then the press conference photos, a slideshow. And then some of the photos in this video, I'll do another slideshow and add them to my buddy's article when he finishes that. And might do a little write-up on the Crawford and Diaz also. So I know this video is long as heck. Sorry about that, but we'll catch you on the next one.